Blog Talk Radio.
Well, hello to the amazing listeners out there. Thank you very much for tuning in to the Divas That Care Network. My name is Candace Gish, and I'm the host of this program. Thank you so much. We're just so excited that each and every one of you has tuned in. If it's your very first time, thank you. I hope that you enjoy our show today and that you're able to go check out our other shows at thedivasthatcare.com. But for any of you that are our returning listeners, we thank you. It's because of you that we've continued to do this program now for 9 years, and we're just having a blast. We get to interview some of the coolest people out there, and I'm going to say that because I just have such a great time every time I have the opportunity to interview one of our amazing divas out there, and lately I've been doing a lot of our young divas, all these inspirational girls that are making a difference in the world, and it's so amazing to hear their stories and to see what they're doing and just to be inspired by them. They bring a smile to my face, and, today's amazing young diva definitely does that. I had the opportunity to, kind of go over some of the things about her, and I was going through her website, and oh my goodness, this girl is an inspiration, and you're going to want to listen to her story today. So let's get started. Well, our amazing diva of the day is the young diva Anna Humphrey. Anna, welcome to the program. I'm just so excited to have you today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be on.
Well, I appreciate you. I know that you're extremely busy. And if you don't mind, could you share a little bit about your story with us today?
Yeah, so I am currently a high school senior in Alexandria, Virginia, in the U.S., and I am basically a massive science nerd. My entire life for the last few years has all been surrounding science, and one of my passions is trying to get other students to be interested in science as well. In particular, one of the areas I've really cared about is environmental science. And one of my main projects for the last few years has been a project called Watershed Warriors. And so it's all about trying to get students, especially younger students, students that are in elementary school, to take the science that they're learning in class and actually experience it in their community, so in their backyard, in their local park, in a way that matters, makes the science matter to them. And then also teach the students to use that science to actually make a difference, because science isn't just, a series of facts that you have to memorize for a test. It's also something that you can actually use to study a problem and identify a problem, and then also identify the best way to solve that problem. And so a lot of what I've been doing over the past few years has been taking science and using it to solve real problems, and teaching other people to do the same thing.
Oh, I love that. What a great thing that you're doing. I honestly wish I would have had you as a science teacher when I was growing up. I think it was so much fun. I'm very much a hands-on type of person now as I grow older, and I think it would have been neat to be able to, really dive into what science is all about. And as you were saying, using it's not just the memorization, it's really diving into what it is. And one of the things I really liked, and I hope that our listeners check this out, you have such an amazing website. And one of the things you offer on your website is these lesson plans. And when I went through them, I'm like, this looks like a lot of fun. What made you decide to do something like that?
Yeah, so the inspiration for Watershed Warriors all came from my 7th grade science class. So in that 7th grade science class, my teacher, instead of sitting at the front of the room and lecturing us about, environmental science, which is one of the topics that we covered in this 7th grade biology class, instead of doing that, she taught us the scientific method, which is the process that scientists use to identify a problem and a question and actually go through and answer it, very methodically. So she taught us this method. And then she told us to go out in our community and find our own problem to solve. And that was just an incredible thing for a teacher to tell you, right? For a teacher to say, I'm not going to tell you what to do and what to study. You need to go out and find something that you want to study and then report back and teach your classmates. That was a huge sort of shift in experience for me. But we didn't stop there, right? So we went out and I personally went out and did a project on wetlands. I was really interested in wetlands' ability to remove bacteria. I had read about in other places how how they'd been using, like in, for example, places where you don't have good sewage systems, or especially in developing countries or places where you've just had a natural disaster, how they've been using wetlands to remove bacteria. And so I wanted to know, like, I knew we had a bacteria problem in the streams in my city, and I wanted to see if wetlands would be a good solution to that. And so I did this project, and I reported back to my class, and then my class ended up, we all listened to everyone's presentations, and then we voted on to choose one project to continue forward and actually use as a basis of a class action project. And the class selected mine, and we ended up using my data and some of my research on wetlands and their ability to improve water quality, and using that as a basis of a wetland restoration project. So we started everything from planning to we wrote a grant to get funding. We reached out to the National Park Service, and we planned and executed this entire wetland restoration project. So we were all like 12 and 13 years old. We're going through and doing this whole project. Yeah. And then at the end of the year, I'd had this incredible experience, like really using science in a way that mattered. We had, from the very beginning when I had that idea, like, hey, could we use wetlands to help clean up water in our city, all the way through the end of the year when we had actually planted wetlands. Like, that was a real thing. I can go by that wetland and say, hey, I planted plants that are there. Even all these years later, like, that was so huge. And I just was at the end of the year, and I'm like, there's no way that there's no way I can just let this be something like that I experience. I need to have as many students have this opportunity, this amazing opportunity as I've had. And so the entire basis of Watershed Warriors has been, how can I get students to have that hands-on opportunity, to feel like they made a real difference in their community. And one of the reasons that the website, we try to keep it very detailed and put up all of our lesson plans there, is because these are lesson plans that we've spent, my peers and I. So I've recruited a number. Watershed Warriors is made up of a number of my fellow high school classmates. We've written these lessons because we want to create that same experience, at least sort of in the little hour-long lessons that we're able to go in and teach. We want to create as much of that experience as possible, where we're taking this real-world problem and we're taking these science standards that they're probably going to have to learn, that we're definitely going to have to learn for a test at the end of the year, and likely like a unit test or something too. And we're creating an activity that's hands-on and that combines those two topics and encourages students to incorporate their own ideas and their own solutions. So it's not just like, okay, I'm memorizing this thing. It's like, how can I, as a student, solve this problem? And so, we try to, all of our lesson plans try to bring in those different components. And we put them on our website so that, other people can use them too, and that, if other groups are interested in teaching students, or other teachers are interested in teaching students with similar lessons, that, they can take a look at ours and the things that we've tested over the last few years, and, use them and adapt them to their own students, their own classrooms.
Well, I love it. And I love that you guys have all put this together. And how many volunteers or how many of your classmates are doing this with you? Is this something that you do at a specific time of the year, or do you do it throughout the year in different schools?
Yeah, so it started, when I started, it was just me. So I had that inspirational experience in 7th grade. 8th grade, at the end of 7th grade, I actually wrote a grant to kickstart Watershed Warriors as its own independent organization. And then that first year when I was in 8th grade, it was just me running it. But then when I got to high school, I realized there's no way that one person can do all of this on their own. And so I recruited a number of my closest friends I was in a science academy at my high school. And so I knew that they were interested in science and environmental science as well. And so that year, I think there was about 7 or 8 of us. And then we sort of kept trying to grow since then. So now we generally have 15 to 20 students that will come in and volunteer, or that have volunteered over the past few years. And we do try to go into, so as far as the actual lessons that we're teaching, it depends on the school that we've partnered with. We do try to go into each school multiple times during the year. When we have a full partnership with a school, that usually looks like having 3 lessons at the beginning of the so 3 lessons at the school, like physically at the school, 1 in the fall, 1 in the winter, and 1 in the spring. And then our 4th final lesson is actually a field trip to a local wetland or a local park to sort of tie in the things that we've taught the students in our 3 previous lessons into an outdoor experience where they're applying it. So like if we had a lesson teaching them about trash, like we have a lesson that we love teaching about the plastic pollution and how that's such a big issue in our oceans. And then we tie that into an activity in a field trip where the students actually get to do a massive trash cleanup, which is really cool. We come away with like 15 full plastic bags of trash collected from a local park. So that's like a really cool like a way to sort of do a full, sort of have that full experience of where we teach them about the issue, we tie in the science standards they need to learn, we let them brainstorm solutions in the lesson that we've taught them at their school, and then at the end of the year they get to go out and actually do something that helps improve that, that helps fix that, address that problem. So that is, so that's the type of thing we try to tie in. But we'll work with schools in a lot of other capacities as well. There are a number of schools where we'll just do our 3 lessons because, it can be difficult to get students to an actual wetland with funding for buses and everything. And we try to do that as frequently as possible. Yeah. And then there are other schools where we'll also just do like a one-off lesson. And so, we try to whatever works best for the teachers and whatever we can fit into our schedules. As students, we're all very busy, but we try to reach out to as many students as possible. Yeah.
So, question I have for you, because I know that you're in your last year of high school and you're heading to college. What is going to happen with your organization? Are you going to be able to continue this into your college years, or are you going to be searching for, other high school students to take this over for you?
Yeah, so we have been working really hard on recruiting younger members from my high school to join, and we have a number of, I've been so impressed with everyone who's come in. They're very organized and fantastic at teaching, and so over the next few months before, so it's not just me going off to college. Actually, most of the majority of those founding members that I recruited my freshman year, that we've really been the lifeblood, we're all graduating and going to college next year.
Oh, my goodness.
We're probably going to do. I know we're probably going to do. We're definitely going to do a lot of work over the next few months of making sure that everything is passed down to this next generations of recruits that have been with us over the last year, or the last 2 years. So that they are ready to go with the organization part, like the part, because there are multiple components to keeping Watershed Warriors running. Right? You have to make sure your partnerships are in place, both with schools and with outside organizations like the National Park Service that you have to coordinate with to get the field experiences. You also have to make sure that you're coordinating with the other students, because especially if you're recruiting new students, you have to make sure that the students are trained to teach. Training being like, make sure we go in and a student's comfortable with the way we try to interact with our younger students, that the student teacher is comfortable with the content, so that they feel like they can answer questions, right? Because for some of us, it depends what science class is. Maybe it's been 2 years since you've taken a biology class or science class. So making sure that everyone's comfortable with materials as well as the actual methods of teaching. And then, of course, there's the logistics of just making sure people can actually get to the school and then get back to our high school and be cleared with attendance and everything. So there's like a lot of little things that we've been training people in and that we're going to pass off. But yeah, it's going to be, I have a lot of faith in the people that we've recruited. I think that they're going to do a wonderful job, and, we'll see what happens with each of the graduating members when we go off to college. But I know for me and for my peers, it's been incredibly valuable experience. I love going and teaching the students, these elementary school students, the number of moments where I've seen students just like their face just light up when you can see that connection has been made. It's incredible. Like all of the effort you put in, it's entirely worth it in those moments. And I hopefully will be able to continue being a part of, or being someone that can inspire those moments in the future. So I hope to take a bit of it with me too.
Well, I'm sure you are, and what an amazing legacy that you're going to be leaving for other students. Something that you started in 7th grade to be where it's at now is quite impressive, and you're making such a difference. What really made you decide? Like, one of the questions I have is just listening to the story. What made you decide to do your whole project to begin with on the watershed? Because that's something that I find quite interesting. It's something that my daughters are really involved in too, and it's always curious to see why somebody decides to focus on that part of it.
Yeah, well, I think in general, water is sort of like it's the thing that everyone takes for granted. Like, if you have easy access to it, it's very certain that you'll probably take it for granted, right? Like, I know here, I turn on a faucet, I turn on the sink, and the water comes out and it's clean, and I don't think twice about that. But that's not the case for a lot of people. And when you have big issues that, and that are going to be really impacting us in the future, like climate change, that we can't be sure that we'll be able to count on something as simple and as important as water if we aren't careful and protective of it. And so I think that in general, water is, I think water access and water resources is one of the most important issues that we have to be cognizant of going forward. So in particular, I think the reason that I landed on water quality as an important focus for me back in 7th grade was, so I live in Alexandria, Virginia, right? And I'm about 5 to 10 minutes more of traffic, but from Washington D.C., which is the nation's capital. And you think that being so close to the nation's capital, our water quality would be fantastic. You think that we would have it figured out, right? But we actually have really big issues with water quality. We have really big issues with algae growth because there's a lot of nutrient pollution going into our like the Potomac River from upstream from farms and such. But we also have a really big issue with bacteria. And the reason we have a big issue with bacteria is because a lot of the cities because they're older, have combined sewer systems. And so these are places where the wastewater from like houses and businesses and everything, those are getting dumped into the same pipes as rainwater, which means that if you have a really big rain event, the pipes overflow. And what happens when the pipes overflow, right? The water has to go somewhere. And right now where that water goes is the Potomac River. It's these local streams that flow into the Potomac River. And this is there's definitely an issue in my city. There's parts of my city that still use a combined sewer. There are parts of DC that use a combined sewer. And it's all because we have these older infrastructures. And so when back in 7th grade, there were a number of articles that were coming out about this issue. And I knew I sort of simultaneously have been reading these papers and these articles about how in developing countries, we just had like Haiti had just had in the last few years had the earthquake and had been dealing with a lot of issues with infrastructure there, and there's a number of natural disasters that you hear about every year, and in these places where you'd had these broken down infrastructures. Some innovative people were using wetlands to help clean up the water in a way that was energy efficient because it's wetlands. It's not like you're pumping energy to make it happen. That was natural, and that actually was fairly effective. At least you couldn't necessarily drink the water coming out of wetlands, but it took a significant amount of bacteria out so that you had less work to do on the back end to clean it and make it potable. And also to keep the environment healthy, so you're not dumping bacteria and things that can be harmful to humans just into the environment. And so it's sort of these two areas sort of came together where I saw these issues happening at home, and I saw these creative solutions to similar issues abroad. And I sort of had that moment where I had to marry the two ideas and create something that would look at whether or not this would be a viable solution for my own community.
Well, I think you made the right decision. I think what you're doing is absolutely extraordinary, and it's just amazing just to listen to you talk about your and it's very passionate in your voice, and I'm excited to hear that, and I know that our listeners are too. I have another one for you. is this something, what are you wanting to do in college? What are you wanting to pursue? Are you wanting to go into the sciences and continue this passion of yours?
Yeah, so I definitely want to become a scientist. As you mentioned, I'm very passionate about science. It's interesting, actually, to talk about what area of science I'm interested in now, because the last few years, so that seventh grade year inspired sort of two paths for me that I've been, been big parts of my life. The first path was Watershed Warriors and really working on the education piece and the environmental science piece. And the second path was research. That same project over seventh grade also inspired me to continue doing research because I loved finding difficult questions to answer and difficult problems to solve, and then, working towards answering or solving them, right? And on the research branch, actually 3 years ago, I also got bit by a bit of a space bug, and have been I've been doing water quality research, but I've also recently been doing a lot of significant research in space, and specifically exoplanets, which are planets that orbit other stars. And so I think for my, as of right now, I think that I'm likely to go into, I plan on majoring in astrophysics in college, which is sort of, it seems like a bit of a deviation from environmental science. But, I think that ultimately it's all about understanding our place in the universe, right? It's all about understanding why our world works the way it does. What made it possible that Earth was able to maintain water and thus maintain life, and that it didn't get stripped of its atmosphere, and that there are all these questions that, like, what made us possible, that by studying other planets around other stars, I hope to sort of answer the questions about our own planet and our own solar system as well. But I definitely, environmental science continues, especially water quality, it continues to be a really big passion of mine as well. So we'll see where exactly all of this takes me going forward, but I hope to continue both, in some capacity or another.
Well, I think it's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And, I know the divas in our tribe here are going to be really excited to follow your journey and see where it's going to lead you, because you are a very inspirational young woman, and we're just in awe. I know I am. I'm listening to your story today, and it's just been great. So what advice would you give to students who are thinking about pursuing their own passions?
Yeah, so that's a big thing, because a lot of people ask me, they're like, you've done so much stuff that you love, but, like, how did you get started? And I think that, it's really easy to hear someone like me talk about something that they've done, right? And I say someone like me because I've always been, for the longest time, I was the person looking up to other girls and other scientists who had done their work, and thinking like, oh my goodness, I want to be like them someday. There's so many science fair students that I've looked up to over the course of my life. And I think that when you see someone who's a role model, it's really hard to think about all the work that they did and the whole process they had to go through to get to the point where they are. And it can be daunting. It can be really daunting. And so my biggest advice is if you've got something that you love, just go for it. It's going to be scary. There's going to be times where you feel like you don't know what you're doing at all. But that's normal. Like, especially in science, I think that science, the purpose of science is to learn new things. And when you get to a certain level, the purpose of science is to learn things that literally no one else knows. And so if you're doing something that's unknown, that's really uncomfortable. It's really uncomfortable when you don't have a manual telling you how to do things, and you don't have perfect examples to follow because it hasn't been done before. That's okay. It's okay to feel uncomfortable. It's okay to feel like you don't know what you're doing. I felt like that so many times over the last few years. I still feel like that. But that's also what makes it exciting, because when you get to that point where you've reached a milestone, where you have an aha moment in research, or you teach that class and you've spent months organizing and writing and preparing for, you realize that even though it was uncomfortable, you realize how much you've grown. Despite it being uncomfortable, you sort of push through that and you accomplish something that had an impact on others. And so I think you just have to go for it. Ask for help when you need it. Find support from your friends. Don't do it alone, and just go for it.
Well, you have absolutely amazing advice. Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you so much for being my amazing guest today. And would you love to share your social media with our listeners today?
Yes, I think I think probably listing it on the website company will probably be best. But it's look up Watershed Warriors at usually WW Initiative on our various social media platforms.
Perfect. And I'm going to be posting all that information on all of our social media links for our listeners today also, so that they can go and check you out and see all the amazing things that you've done and pass it on to their friends and family too.
Yeah, sounds wonderful. Get involved. We want as many people going out and teaching science as possible. Passing it all on.
Pass it on. Well, thank you, Anna. I've really enjoyed today's conversation. You are just really inspirational, and thank you so much for sharing all of your knowledge today. It was absolutely a great show, and we want to thank you from the Divas That Care.
Thank you again for having me. It's been fun.
Thank you, and thank you to all of our listeners. As I was saying, this is our 9th year of doing this program, and it's because of all of you that we continue to do this program and share these stories with you. So make sure that you take this call, you send it to your friends and family, especially to the young divas out there in your life, because what these shows are all about is inspiration and empowerment and locking arms. And we want those young divas to hear these inspirational women out there, and we want to share their stories so much. So thank you again to Anna, and thank you to our listeners. And we hope that each and every one of you has an amazing day. So until next time, take care and do something kind. Take care. Bye-bye.